مرحبا بكم جميعا وحياكم الله في هذه الورشة التفاعلية. سعداء جدا بمشاركتكم في برنامجنا التدريبي الذي ننظمه في هيئة أبو ظبي للطفولة المبكرة بالتعاون مع شركائنا. نسعى في هيئة أبو ظبي للطفولة المبكرة إلى دعم مسيرة التنمية الشاملة للأطفال وتعزيز رفاهيتهم منذ فترة الحمل وحتى سن الثامنة، وضمان نموهم في بيئة داعمة وآمنة وتعزز وصولهم لموارد وأدوات إبداعية ومبتكرة، وحصولهم على خدمات متكاملة وذات جودة عالية تساهم في تطوير مهاراتهم وتحسين قدراتهم. لذلك نحن حريصين على تمكين شركائنا وتعزيز قدراتهم لدعم التنمية الشاملة للطفل. هذا البرنامج تم تصميمه خصيصا للعاملين في قطاع التعليم المبكر والحضانات بهدف إثراء خبراتكم وتنمية مهاراتكم في مجالات الطفولة المبكرة وصولا لتحسين جودة التعليم وتحقيق رفاهية أحبتنا الأطفال من خلال التركيز على 4 مجالات رئيسية هي الصحة والتغذية، حماية الطفل، الدعم الأسري، إلى جانب الرعاية والتعليم المبكرين. نتمنى لكم مشاركة ممتعة ومفيدة ومداخلات ثرية وقيمة، ونتطلع للالتقاء بكم مجددا في برامجنا المستقبلية. نشكركم مرة أخرى على حضوركم ومشاركتكم، ونثمن لكم جهودكم في تنمية ورعاية أحبتنا الأطفال.
Hello and welcome everyone to today's session. We'll be covering literacy in early years with Shamila, and she'll be guiding us through today's session. Good evening, Shamila.
Thank you, Rafi. Good evening, everyone. Hope you've had a fantastic Ramadan. I'm going to jump right into it because I know many of you will be preparing your iftars as well. So I hope it's an interesting lesson for you all. So today we're looking at literacy in the early years. The term literacy is used by some to simply describe, just wait, let me get on to the next slide, sorry, changing. Yes, there we go. From the day our children are born to the day they tell us what we should read to them. So reading is an important part of literacy and development in the literacy areas in the early years. Penny Tassani said that a shared story between a child and a familiar adult has a huge impact on children's interest and motivation for reading later on. So we do want to look at the importance of literacy within the early years setting today, and especially with motivating a child to read later on in life. What is literacy? The term literacy is used by some simply to describe reading and writing, but in fact literacy, what we need to understand that literacy has a much wider range of learning within the word literacy. So literacy in the early years could include not only books but print in the environment, early mark making areas, writing skills, pencil grip, as well as sharing books and reading. So literacy in itself is not only about books and reading. It's actually the whole process that we actually have the important task of doing is creating the love of books within the classroom, of having the early years setting or environment enriched with opportunities for children to enjoy literacy at an early stage before they become little readers. When does literacy begin? As we all know, even before birth, babies within the womb are listening to different voices, different sounds, different languages. And as they are born, they quickly learn these language skills and pick up communication skills when it comes to literacy. They're aware of familiar voices and familiar sounds, and literacy develop. So we know that literacy is developed at a very early stage in life. We know that what we need to do is then prompt that literacy, prompt that communication within the earlier settings, within the house, as a child grows, for them to have the love for taking that interest further. We know that early literacy impacts on school achievement, and it is interrelated with all the domains of child development. And the stronger a child's experiences are with language, the more likely they will experience success when learning to read. Emerging literacy. Emerging literacy describes a gradual ongoing process of learning to understand the use of language that begins at birth and continues through the early childhood years. During this period, children first learn to use oral forms of language, listening, speaking, and then begin to explore them and make sense of the written form of language. So what we need to do again is the emerging literacy. As we know, it starts at the very beginning. We want them to understand listening and speaking, lots of communication, lots of language, lots of introduction of different words, encouraging children to use different language skills, different tones, different words in different contexts, because as we set that base, as children grow older, they can then use that information to explore the sense of written form, as in reading and writing. How can we support emergent literacy? There's many play experiences to support emerging literacy, and this is what we're going to look at this morning. Sorting, matching, classifying, and sequencing materials such as beads, a box of buttons, or a set of colored cubes contribute to children's emerging literacy skills. Rolling Play-Doh, doing fine motor skills, finger play, help children strengthen and improve the coordination of the small muscles and tendons in the hands and fingers, which supports them for their pencil grip. They use these muscles to control writing tools such as crayons, markers, and brushes. So we're actually doing several things in one when we're supporting children in their emergent literacy skills. We are strengthening their finger and hand muscles for them to be able to write when they're older. We're also introducing different concepts of language, reading books to them, giving them a love of books, having literacy in their environment to support them with their reading skills. I'm going to go through a few examples of the kind of activities you can consider within the setting in your classroom. Obviously, you would be maneuvering these activities according to the age group you're looking after, but these are just some activities that have come to mind to support early literacy skills when it comes to language and reading development. So we've got song sticks. We can glue some simple symbols from your favorite nursery rhyme and songs to create the sticks. And then children choose one and guess what it stands for before they start singing. Rhymes are not only a great way of developing listening and speaking skills, but it also works as a great social experience or social exercise, a perfect quick interludes too. So, have different songs, have your song sticks. The symbols themselves will push them towards remembering what song is related to the symbol, and off they go. They start singing. It's written, so we have exposure to language there as well. Tracing letters, as we all know, an amazing and very easy way to incorporate literacy within the classroom. Why not try some creative alternatives to, like, we're trying to avoid printed worksheets, so we can actually use a more better way of tracing letters. Or we can use chalk outside, we can draw letters outside on the pavement, they can fill and follow the lines with their pebbles, we can do it with Play-Doh, we can have the letter that we want the child to understand how to write, and then give them different mark making tools to be able to follow that interest and practice letter writing. We can actually have maybe on the pavement wet paintbrushes, not even with paint, just with water, and follow the shape of the letter or the sound that we'll be focusing on within the classroom at that time. It's immersive and it makes children focus on each letter for a longer time. It's not just copying lines or following lines on a tracing sheet or a worksheet. It's actually more practically involved, and children enjoy it. It's an interest that they take further. Doing a worksheet is just a quick worksheet and off it goes. The concept, the concentration, the time spent on worksheets is much less than what it would be if we do the same kind of concept or follow or aim for the same kind of objective, but in a different, more practical sense within the classroom. We can even have secret letters. I think this is a really fun way to incorporate literacy within the classroom. We sprinkle a little bit of magic into our children's day. Take a white crayon, write some letters on a white piece of paper, and as we know with the wax crayons, if you try to paint over them with watercolors, the letter or the shape that you've drawn with the wax colors will come up and be seen within the paint colors that you've painted over with. So children can use some watercolor paints, watch their amazement when those letters suddenly just appear. And then you can ask them, you say, prompt them, what letter is this? What sound is this? Can you think of anything that within that classroom that is starting with this sound or finishing with this sound, it is a really fun way to incorporate literacy development within the classroom. You might want to create a alphabetical museum, create a DIY showcase with some cardboard boxes, write big letters in the middle of each of them, have children look for various items in the classroom or in their environment that they'd like to place inside this box corresponding to the letter that it begins with. This activity can be a long-lasting game. If you want to change the exhibition every now and then, you can move the boxes around to make it more tricky. You might not want to do it in the alphabetical order. You might want to do it in the phonics order. You might want to do it in a mixed random order just to challenge those children a little bit more. We can also extend this activity at home, encourage parents to look around the home with their children for items starting with a particular sound. The children can bring those items in and put them into our sound box, and then during circle time or during their literacy time, you can actually pick a letter and look at the different objects that parents have brought in with their children, or children have found within their classroom setting. It's always important to understand that when we do introduce literacy within the classroom, it's done through lowercase letters. Children will not be exposed to the capital letters until then it's needed. For the early years, we do focus on the lowercase letters, unless we're actually teaching them to write their name, and then we do or a word of an object, we do teach them that the capital letters do exist. But during our literacy development in early years, it will be lowercase letters within the classroom. Another fun way to incorporate a listening is, we can make listening years. This is a link on how to make it and what activity goes around it. You can then go for listening walks, trying to hear the different sounds in the world around you. For example, if you see a tower, you can then ask children where they hear the sound t, t, t. Is it in the beginning? Is it in the middle? Is it at the end? So you can actually take that learning further in a more practical way. So a lot of this is learning through play and learning through practical things, instead of sitting at a chair and table with worksheets, copying the letter t, t, t again and again and again, and maybe even in many times using cartoon representatives of objects or items or even things that relate to the sound t. What we want to do is give them real life experiences, so they actually learn from the experiences themselves in a more fun and more meaningful manner. Another great way is a letter hunt. Write lowercase letters around the edge of a paper plate, cut in between each letter. And next time you're out somewhere outdoors, give the children the plates, and they can actually fold in the part that they flipped over with a particular sound on it. When they see something beginning, ending, or with the sound in the middle, depending on the age of your child, you can adjust the activity. They go around, and this is a really great way to incorporate literacy into fun activities, outdoor activities. The great letter hunt is a brilliant way for children to actually match letters to the things they see around them in the classroom. We can actually extend this activity further, as mentioned, as where is the sound? Look at the sound, look for anything around you that is incorporating the sound within the word. Is it in the beginning? Is it at the end? Or is it at the beginning, in the middle? Sorry. Lego, also a fun way to incorporate literacy within the classroom. Do some letters on the Lego pieces, and teach children or support children in matching up or putting those letters together to create words. And this can also be done on cars. Maybe you want to line up cars with certain letters on them. It can be done with balls. It can be done with any item where you've actually manipulated them by writing on them and then giving them a word that they need to put together using the single words that they have on the items that you've chosen to use, and see if they can make the words together to match the actual word that you've given to them. It's also another fun way, more practical way of teaching children how to read and recognize letters and putting them into the correct order. What do statistics say about reading? Children who enjoy reading are 3 times more likely to have good mental well-being than children who don't enjoy reading. So what our aim through all these activities is to support children in reading and creating a love of books. The National Literary Trust has said that children who say they have a book of their own are 15 times more likely to read above the level expected for their age than their peers who don't own a book. So do invest in a good bookshelf and in the books to go with it. Children really do enjoy reading. It allows them to bring fantasy to life. You can actually be a part of that session as educators and as parents. So do encourage your parents to read books with the children. What we usually do in the setting that I'm managing at the moment is we used to be able to send books home from our bookshelves with children, and they take it over for the weekend, have a good read, because some children don't book at home. And if we have books here within the setting, why not send those books home to encourage the love of reading? I've also done workshops, and I think something that you might want to think about is doing workshops with your parents to teach them or inform them of the actual importance of introducing literacy at a young age and being able to read with children at a young age, and what developmental what support we see in children's development, and what qualities we'll see emerge within children if we do expose them to these different areas at a young age. Storytelling the right way. I mean, we can all read stories, we all know that, but we know that we can read stories in a particular way. There's certain skills involved, and I think we need to incorporate when we're reading a story to a child or a group of children. We do have, there's a clip here, and we get a chance at the end to go through it, but we'll definitely, I think you could have a chance to watch one of Neil Griffith's storytelling sessions, and it'll give you a good idea of what I'm talking about this evening. We need to remember that it's important not to race a story. We don't want to rush through a story. We want to bring the story to life. We want to spend time. We want to get this, talk about setting the scene. We want to talk about the characters. We want to talk about emotions. We want to talk about, we want to encourage children to share their knowledge and experiences. They can ask questions. They can provide opportunities. We want to provide them opportunities to participate. Reading a story is not getting through a book from the beginning to the end. Reading a story is actually bringing that story to life. Many times you probably won't read every word or read every word on every page or read every page of a book. You need to grasp onto the concept of the story and then bring that story to life. Animate, have different tones of voice, for different characters. Make sure you use the right kind of voice when you're asking a question, when you're making a statement, when there's a sudden change of the environment within the story. We need to bring the stories to life for children to have a love of reading stories. And when you've done that over a certain amount of time, and if they're actually exposed to somebody who does not have those reading skills, they will then jump in and say, oh, we don't do it this way, we do it this way. And I think having these live story sessions for parents as well is a fun way and a good way to educate parents on how to read stories to their children, especially bedtime stories. Many parents would read a bedtime story, and it will be something they do every night. But the way they read the story is important. How much animation, how much character, how much life they put into the story is very important, because that will then support children having a love for storytelling and story reading. And many times when children have been exposed to such experiences, when they do read books themselves, they will then incorporate a similar kind of way of reading the story to themselves. It's animation, and it's exciting. They bring those stories to life. What can we do within our settings to be able to support reading and make it a comfortable activity for children to resort to when they want to have some time for themselves, or they want to just kind of relax themselves? Cozy reading corners are amazing ways to incorporate the love of reading and opportunities for reading within children in your setting. Making up a cozy spot just for books is a great trick to create positive reading connections, even for the most resistant little ones. If you've set up an environment that's inviting, that's comfortable, and it's got the books there alongside, as you can see in the pictures, some comfortable things, some relaxing items around. Children will go there to just maybe initially just relax, maybe have some time out for themselves during the day, maybe have a lie down. But if they're then exposed or in the surrounding of storybooks, they will tend to pick up a book and they will tend to go through the pages, and maybe you can sit with them during that time, edge yourself in, and then ask them if you'd like them to read a story to like you to read a story to them. And maybe as they grow older, you can say, would you like to read the story to me? And if you've exposed themselves to the necessary reading skills, you will actually see that when a child reads a story to you, they use the same kind of animation, same kind of love, and bringing that story to life as you did for them. You don't need to make it into such a great deal. It just needs to be, the areas need to be comfortable. It needs to be inviting. It needs to be a calming area in the classroom, and surrounding the area of the cozy corner. We try to avoid the loud kind of activities. So we don't want to have a construction area set up next to the cozy corner. We need to look at the surroundings and see whether the environment surrounding the cozy corner is also a calming environment for the children. Story stacks are also an amazing way to incorporate literacy and the love of reading within the classroom. A story stack can be a large bag with a child's favorite book and some supporting materials to go with it. Again, these props will support you bringing stories to life. Using story stacks in our early year settings is an excellent way to create and sustain an interest for books. Children enjoy fun and interactive activities, and it's a perfect way to allow children to be more hands-on during story time. We're stimulating their minds, their imaginations, we're bringing those stories to life. It creates another dimension to the book and really allows children to make sense of what's going on in the story. Not only do story stacks encourage children to play and explore, they also are encouraged. It encourages them to think creatively and provides them with opportunities to create and think critically. They're a great opportunity for children to consider characters, locations of the story, taking the lead of the main character in the story, expressing themselves maybe as the character throughout the story, and help them, which in turn helps them develop and improve their social communication and language skills. So all these props will support bringing that story to life, and in turn allowing children to be an actual part of the story. Children may be able to express different emotions. They will be able to think about the different characters. How do they feel? Expressing emotions. Alongside this, we also know that story stacks encourage children to listen to stories in a group. It will encourage turn taking. Maybe there's certain props that will be passed around between children. So we actually can, instead of it being a one-on-one activity, having a group of children being part of the story session with the story stack will encourage turn taking, discussions, comments, feelings to be expressed, and that's something that we want to encourage. It's also a great way to build partnership with parents. As I've mentioned, we do send books home on the weekend with parents. Maybe when things are a bit more reliant for us on the COVID side, we can actually send these story stacks home to support the love of reading within the home environment as well. Sending a storybook on itself, in opposed to sending a story stack with all the props, will then encourage parents to actually bring that story to life when they're reading stories at home with their children. I think another way to encourage the love of books is by celebrating annual World Book Day in a huge way. It's a great opportunity to celebrate reading within the early years setting. It gives an opportunity to encourage parents and grandparents in the setting to read their favorite stories to the children. Children dress up as their favorite storybook character. We can organize book fairs, encourage children and families to visit together to choose books. Maybe a parent would like to come in, obviously once COVID is over, come in and read a book to the children, to their child's class. And this will then again incorporate a love of literacy and reading. Maybe have a day of storybook-based activities for children to enjoy. Maybe even have a theme of storybooks and activities that children can enjoy within the setting over a period of time. Talk about authors, talk about illustrations, the pictures, the words, the comments, the emotions behind each story. So actually do dig deep into the storybook and look at all the concepts around it. Maybe you want to encourage children to bring in photos showing them reading books in different locations around the house. Maybe they're reading books in their bedroom, in the garden. Maybe do have a cozy corner in their homes. So allow that connection between home and school and reading to be a comfortable and an open one. Younger children enjoy writing as almost twice as much as their older peers. So what do the statistics say? So children at 8 to 11 years old, 68.5% of the children enjoy writing. And as you get older, obviously that kind of decreases. The younger they are, the more enjoyment they have when it comes to writing. And what we want to do is push on that love of writing. And if we can push on that love of writing, it's very possible that as they grow older, they can maintain that love for writing. And the best way for us to incorporate the love of writing is incorporate the love of literacy, reading, and exposure to literacy within the classroom setting. And why is writing so important? Being able to write is one of the many things that most of us usually take for granted. Even if we're not keen writers, we may still be able to write out a shopping list or jot down the odd note. For children, writing is a skill that they have to learn. And like so much during childhood, it develops gradually. We teach children from the very beginning how to strengthen their muscle tendons in their hands, pencil grip, activities that will support writing later on, support the love of writing later on, literacy, reading. These are all different areas that we look at and focus on when we're looking at the prime goal for writing at the end, and as they grow older. In this picture here, you can see that there's actually an upturned table with cling film around it, and instead of the traditional way of a pen and paper and a child sitting at a table practicing their literacy skills and practicing writing and fine motor skills, actually in a more fun way. I think most of you have done this already in your classes, is having the cling film wrapped around and children have opportunity to do mark making on the cling film. It actually widens their horizons away from the traditional table and chair literacy and writing and worksheets. We want to encourage children to make their mark. Mark making simply, it refers to different patterns, lines, textures, shapes. This term is typically used to describe the scribbles that children do, maybe on a piece of paper, maybe on the floor, as you see, maybe on cling film, using different mark making materials. It can be used with their hands. It can be done with paintbrushes. It can do with sticks. It can do with branches. So these are all different ways that you can incorporate mark making within your environment in the classroom. And if you incorporate a rich mark making environment, you are actually supporting children with their literacy and writing and reading skills. Mark making gives children an opportunity to express themselves, to explore new materials other than pen and paper. Encourages them to create marks using their fingers, and maybe to draw in sand trays, maybe in shaving foam on a table. We might have easels propped up. We might have an art corner where the whole wall is covered with paper, and there's lots of different mark making materials for them to enjoy. So there's so many different ways you can incorporate mark making within the setting and the environment. And I think the most important thing is to understand the importance of mark making as an early stage of writing skills and literacy development within the classroom setting and as children grow. I think research has often shown that mark making is crucial for a child's development and learning. It's not only teaching children how to hold a pen correctly. So as I mentioned, it is preparing them for later writing skills. When children are making marks, they're practicing how to hold their pencil. It's, as I said, it's actually controlling them. It's strengthening their hand muscles. And it enhances their physical development by improving their fine motor skills and helps develop hand-eye coordination. Mark making also represents children's thoughts and ideas. It gives children the opportunity to express themselves creatively and allows them to communicate their feelings through their drawings or even using their marks to tell stories. As they develop, their marks become more complex and sophisticated, and creativity blooms. The brain and language development is also supported through mark making by giving children the opportunity to explore different mediums of mark making. It engages them in sensory play, allows them to discover new exciting materials, and it helps to enhance children's critical thinking, brain development, and language development, which gives them ability to build towards more complex learning tasks in the future. These marks can also support emerging concepts of maths, developing into mathematical representations and enhancing learning. So there's lots of skills I learned through mark making. Children begin their journey towards writing by, as mentioned, by making marks, not actually by producing letters and words to begin with. A scribble maybe more will actually support children in developing those letters and word formation for later life. So they need to be able to learn how to manipulate their mark making skills, practice their mark making skills in different ways. So when they are at the point where they need to start producing letters and words, they have the control and sense of understanding of when they manipulate their mark making ways in a particular way, they're going to be able to form letters, words, and numbers. Once they can sit with a meal in front of them, you can actually give them food to explore and let them make marks with their food at the table. Marks also have meaning. I think it's what we need to understand. It's very important for us to realize that a lot of activities that are taking place within the mark making environments, we might see these activities as scribbles, we might see them as mere children just exploring their activities in mark making, and then what we need to do is we need to be able to put meaning to those drawings. We need to be able to ask children. We can sit down with them and ask them, what does this drawing mean? What does this scribble mean? And many times children will bring their drawings and their scribbles to life by telling you exactly what they mean. So it's not, at times we've had staff members throw away particular scribbles or drawings and say, they were just scribbling around. But actually, when we take those drawings, we sit with the child and we say, look, what were you doing here? They'll actually be able to bring those drawings and those scribbles to life and tell you exactly what they represent. And when we do send those drawings home with the representation that the child has given us, it actually is more meaningful for the child. As you can see in the picture here, we have scribbles that actually don't look like anything, but when you've asked the child, they've actually done a drawing of their father, of a baby, of their mother, and of someone called Zareen, so which is the child themselves. So they've actually drawn a family portrait, yet if we hadn't have asked the child what they've drawn, it would have just been a paper full of scribbles and odd shapes. So we can create mark making areas within the setting. They could be portable mark making areas. It could be mark making areas that have been set up. And what we can do is actually change those mark making areas as and when maybe the theme changes or the topics change. And the different materials that we use within the mark making area can be stationery, or it can be other things like sand, like stones, like sticks, like branches. So we want to be able to incorporate a mixture of mark making tools for children to be able to explore their mark making skills. Sand is also a fantastic way of incorporating mark making. We can add different items to sand for sensory. As the children grow, you might be able to hide certain letters in sand that they can find them and match them to a template. Maybe we can maybe able to use the paint scrapers from our mark making pack to test the different marks that you can make. So all these are different ways that we can incorporate mark making within an environment with sand. You might have sticks, you might have pebbles that you want to line within the sand. Children might be able to make marks with the sticks, with branches and twigs. within the classroom. And to make marks stand out more, maybe you can use damp sand in opposed to wet sand and dry sand, so maybe an incorporation of both of them, so we can manipulate other areas within the classroom to be able to incorporate mark making and the love of literacy within our classroom setting. Painting with string is also another fun way to incorporate mark making within an environment. Dipping the string into paint and making different shapes on your paper is also a fun way for mark making. Making marks in Play-Doh. Maybe you want to add different oils or different textures to support sensory development for children who are quite young. And as children grow older, you can provide them with different tools such as rolling pins, scouring pens, bladeless scissors, marbles, stones, feathers. All these are different tools or different props that we can use within Play-Doh play to be able to support mark making on our Play-Doh table. Children might line down stones within the Play-Doh. If we put in spaghetti sticks and stand them into a clump of Play-Doh and we weave in Cheerio hoops or anything that can be woven into or threaded into the sticks, that will support with hand-eye coordination. As we know, supporting hand-eye coordination at a young age will support children in their mark-making skills for later life, and for writing also. It actually does strengthen fine motor skills and hand-eye coordination. Another way is nature printmaking. So have lots of natural items in a basket, with paint, and allow children to make marks and create a piece of art. We also have water painting, again mentioned below. We just need to have a pot of water. Children can go out onto a blackboard, onto a fence, onto the floor, and start making marks. And even if it's a sunny day, as you know, in Dubai, when the marks disappear, they can start. And it's a magical experience as well when they make marks and all of a sudden the marks disappear. They make another mark and so on. And as children grow older, maybe you want to present them with particular lines and patterns or particular letters and shapes and numbers that they can copy using this concept. Shaving foam is another fun way to incorporate mark making within a classroom setting. It could be in individual trays, it could be in trays for children as a group, depending on the situation we're in at the moment. I would advise single trays. And we can, again, children can start off manipulating the marks themselves, and as they get older, we can actually support them by giving them particular shapes or letters and lines that we'd like them to follow, and they can follow those within their sand tray, their foam tray, or their salt tray areas. We mentioned already chalk outside. Potato painting is another fun way for mark making. Children can cut potatoes in half, make particular shapes themselves, or the shapes can be manipulated, and we can do mark making with potato painting. So all in all, there's many different ways that we can incorporate literacy within a classroom setting and classroom environment. It can start off obviously for the younger children, more sensory, and as children grow older, it becomes more concrete. Introducing and supporting literacy within the classroom will introduce and support children's love of reading, their love of writing, and their love of seeing different languages and different literacy or different words around the setting that they're in, and it will support them with their communication skills. Thank you for the session. I did try to get through as much as I could before iftar, because I know many of you will be preparing for iftar this evening. If there's anything that you'd like to know, or something that I might have missed out on and you'd like to know a little bit more about when it comes to literacy within the setting, please, we have a few minutes for some questions. Thanks, Nicola. There's some fantastic ideas there. Do incorporate them within your setting. And reflect when you go back to your classrooms and see what we can do in the classroom to support literacy in the environment that we're in. Do we have any more questions, Rafi? Thank you, Elisa. Okay, brilliant. I think we are done with the session. I don't think there's any more questions coming through. I hope you've enjoyed the journey with me and the rest of the presenters, and enjoy your iftar. So good evening, everyone, and until next time. Thank you, Rafi.
Thank you, Shamila.